Hey everybody, Brett from Love Bats and the Belfry here, back for another video. I recently gave Creepshow 2 a rewatch and just kind of wanted to come on and talk about it a little bit. A lot of people have seen the original Creepshow and think that it is among a classic, a story by Stephen King and George A. Romero. I definitely agree with that. And I kind of wanted to come on to shine some light on. I really like Creepshow too, actually. Over the years, I've grown to appreciate it a lot more. When initially watching it, I wasn't a huge fan, honestly. I held the original in such high regard, and the original had 5 shorts on here, and I recently did a video talking about the original Creepshow on VHS. If you'd like to check that out, that is on the channel. But I wanted to come on here. I don't have a VHS for Creepshow 2, but I do have it on DVD, and gave it a rewatch. And yeah, it's pretty decent, honestly. I mean, I would say the stories probably don't stand out as much as some of the ones from the original Creepshow. And in Creepshow, the original is 5 of them. Here, there's only 3, but I think they're 3 pretty solid ones across the board. At first, I didn't really care all that much about them. I thought The Raft, which is the second one, I thought was the best among the other 2. I didn't really care about the other 2 when I first watched the movie, but now I actually really like all 3. The first one is called Old Chief Woodenhead, and it's about an older couple that own this general store just out in the middle of nowhere. It's just all desert land, and apparently the town had thrived previously and long time ago, and people were always through the town, and they were successful, but there really isn't. Practically all the buildings that are there in this desert town are basically non-existent or have been abandoned. And the older couple that owns the place they were always kind to everybody. They have this cigar store Indian that hangs outside, pretty much this Native American who lives among that land. They have no way of paying back the owner, the man and woman who own the store. They have no way of really paying them in money, so they give them this very prized possession among their people. And to them it's priceless, but it is worth a good amount of money, and this is the only way of them being able to pay the older couple back. So they end up leaving this prized possession with them, and they say, it's all yours. They're like, until we are able to physically pay you back. If we can't pay you back, this is yours. And shortly after, most of the introduction of this is the older couple kind of establishes them and their relationship, and how they don't have much either. And the wife says to the husband, it's we're not going to be able to leave much for the grandkids, besides good intentions, and as far as looking after their grandchildren. Then one Native American comes and drops off the prized possession to them, and they feel honored by this because it's they weren't really asking for anything in return. Native American goes off, and then I believe the nephew of one of those people ends up coming in with his own little posse and robbing the store. And most of this is pretty much this older couple, they're up there in age, so it's they're not exactly able to defend themselves here. And you have a number of these really young folks that are just up to no good. One of the main bad guys is led by the dude that plays Bill Tench on Mindhunter, and if you see a picture of him, you're there's no way that's him. But it is him, because he looks so different and he's so young in this. But yeah, pretty much they just toy with them all the time, and ends up, obviously, the older couple ends up getting murdered, which honestly, the first time watching it, it is pretty sad. You're why am I watching this? This is Creepshow, and you're just expecting just some funny mayhem and people getting killed or slasher type stuff, but like, part of it makes me pretty sad because it's like, it is just an older couple. They're just innocent people, and like, they did nothing to anyone. And of course, they end up getting killed by this group of people. And so they go off, and the cigar store Indian, known as Old Chief Woodenhead, basically comes to life to right the wrong. So it is a classic revenge tale. And I actually, like, rewatching it, it's like knowing that, as sad as it is watching the old couple get murdered, being able to see, you know, the classic revenge tale of the cigar store Indian coming to life and then going after these people, it is enjoyable. And with what they did to make the cigar store Indian come to life, like, there's not really CGI to this. I think it's just animatronics of what they did, but I think it's fantastic. And I love, like, how the way that Old Chief Woodenhead, like, kills the leader of the group who robbed the store, I think is wonderful. Like, it's the most fitting, like, form of revenge you could get. And yeah, it is pretty straightforward, but I think it's definitely carried by the performances, by the tension in when they're robbing the store, and when Old Chief Woodenhead is like, all right, you did something bad, I gotta get you back for it. And yeah, it's a pretty enjoyable thing, and I've grown to appreciate it a lot more now. So there's that. The second short is probably still among my favorite, which is called The Raft. And it's about four, like, kind of teenager, kind of college type students go down to this lake, and they end up swimming to this one platform, and like, they kind of just notice some weird, like, blob thing in the water. And like, one of them saying it's an oil slick and whatever. And it's basically a blob that is just this unstoppable, like, thing that's like, once you touch it, you're done. And it gets gory, but it is just like, it's a good sense of tension, like, between just these four people just on this little raft thing, you know, in the middle of the lake, because it's like they're afraid to go anywhere because they feel like if they jump in the water to swim back to shore, that this thing's going to get them. And it's like, it's established pretty quick, like, this thing is not to be messed with, or not to, don't go around and find out, basically. As short as this segment is, it's like, you actually do get to know these teenagers pretty quickly and see their true colors. And I do like about this that it's like, they are just introduced just as, like, these obnoxious, like, teenage college kids. And then, like, things get real, like, pretty quickly. And yeah, I really enjoy The Raft, and I think it's definitely the strongest one out of the three. But the other two, to me, just, they aren't too far behind. I think with Creepshow 2, I think because of how large of a gap it was between the first and the second being made, there is, like, a large disconnect, I think, between both of them. They definitely seem like the productions are just way different from one another, and like how things are gone about. But I think the second one, I think if people give a chance to watch, I think the second one is pretty decent, and some people can definitely come to appreciate it. And the third short of this is The Hitchhiker. And that was the name of a famous Twilight Zone episode, but it is very different in tone from that Twilight Zone episode. But the hitchhiker is this woman, like, hates her husband and sleeps with this one guy, and then leaves, like, in the middle of the night, and is driving back home to her husband, and pretty much hits this guy. Just hits this random guy because she just straight up cannot drive. Like, it's showing her just drive, like, just for a little bit. You're like, good Lord, I'm shocked you haven't had an accident earlier. And she ends up hitting this random hitchhiker. And just what ensues is just constant ridiculousness. And like, so she hits the guy and realizes, like, oh my God, I can't go to jail over this. I can't, be charged for manslaughter or whatever. So she ends up driving off, and then actually there's a truck driver that stops and sees the guy. He's played by Stephen King. It's pretty funny. And so there were several witnesses to seeing at least like this guy get hit by somebody and then drive off. And so she's mostly in the clear from just at least the innocent people. But yeah, what ensues is just the hitchhiker consistently catching up to her somehow in some supernatural way and just saying, "Thanks for the ride, lady." And basically drives this woman to pure madness to where she is like running off roads. Also, for such an old car, like her car is surprisingly sturdy with how many times she crashes her car and just goes through like hell. And there's just one point towards the end where like she runs off the road into the woods, finds like sees the guy, so she hits him again and runs him with her car into a tree. And then like, each time she's like basically re-killing this guy over and over again. He's just getting more and more mangled. And especially towards the end, she like runs the guy with her car into the tree, backs up, runs into the tree with the guy again, backs up, runs into it again. And I was like, how is your car still moving at this point? But she ends up driving off once again. And that's like when she really thinks she had killed the guy for real. It's like at this point, this guy is basically a zombie. But she ends up getting back to home, parks her car in her garage, and then the guy is still ridiculously mangled right next to her when she like opens the car door. And of course, he's just saying throughout this whole thing, "Thanks for the ride, lady." And so she like really loses her mind, but the hitchhiker basically gets to her at that point. So the entire, like, she has her engine still running and her garage door is closed. So obviously, when that happens, it's like you can just suffocate and die. And some people unfortunately choose to end their lives that way. It's what it's kind of chalked up to be when they go to find her, is like that this hitchhiker was just in her mind, and they won't have that thought process. They'll just think that she like crashed the crap out of her car and decided to end her life. But I mean, this is pure 80s nonsense. I've grown to appreciate this movie a lot over the years. I've like I said earlier, like I didn't care for it that much when I first watched it. I watched it again, kind of liked it a little more, and then each time, like every couple years, I kind of just give it a rewatch, and I've grown to now I like really appreciate it. It's surprisingly an anthology that has really grown on me. And normally with anthology films or TV shows, it's like I know real quick, like after watching something, whether I liked it or not. Usually anthologies aren't much of like a grower to me, but this is one of the few exceptions where, yeah, just as time has gone on, I've liked it more and more. And while I still think the original Creepshow edges it out, Creepshow 2 it's not a bad addition to, a Creepshow movie franchise. And I've never seen Creepshow 3, but I'm not sure when I'm ever going to tackle that one. I mean, I didn't even realize they made a Creepshow 3 until like a couple of years ago. But of course, they also have the TV series. And I've gone on record talking about the TV series that it's like it's very hit or miss, obviously, with anthologies. But to me, the Creepshow TV series is mostly missed for me. But Creepshow 2 is a lot of fun, and I highly suggest checking it out. If you haven't watched it, or if you watched it before, give it a chance. You may still feel the same way, but Creepshow 2 is still like, it has enough of an identity on its own that I think it's enjoyable to watch. So I just want to come on and talk about it because I just did rewatch it, and it is Halloween season. So yeah, this is a good Halloween film, or watch the first one, if you haven't watched it this season. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in a future video. Bye.